Hey, what's up guys? This is Jedith, and this is going to be our first video post the trees being released. We have a lot to talk about, a lot to cover. In this video, I want to cover a specific talent that we were given that is very, very interesting, at least to me. I'm sure you guys were pretty excited when you saw it as well. It's a talent called Rage Fire. So I'll read it to you first. By the way, before we get into this, just so you guys know, there is going to be a Havoc Demon Hunter Roundtable talk happening on Twitch on my channel tomorrow night. You're probably seeing it on the day that it's happening, which is Friday, so it's going to be on Twitch tonight for you, 10 p.m. Eastern, twitch.tv/Jedith. You can catch it there. It's a Havoc Demon Hunter Roundtable talk with me, Psycho, Atreyan, and Shatterek. And if you can't catch it live, I will be posting it on YouTube the next day, which will be Saturday. So yeah. Let's hop into this. We're going to look at Rage Fire. Each time Immolation Aura deals critical damage, 50% of the damage dealt is gathered as Rage Fire. When Immolation Aura expires, you explode, dealing all stored Rage Fire damage to nearby enemies. So there's a lot to unpack here. The first thing I want to talk about is how crit affects it, right? So your crit is actually going to be valuable for something, right? There's a bunch of other things in the tree where crit is actually pretty good to get, but this is just one other thing to the list that makes crit super valuable for us. So the more crit you have, the more your Immolation Aura is going to crit, right? Each tick of your Immolation Aura has a chance to crit, and every time it does crit, 50% of that damage is gathered as Rage Fire. So you get a buff, and the damage, you can see it going up and up and up. The second thing that crit helps us with is the actual explosion of Rage Fire. So the final burst of damage that you've stored up has the ability to crit as well. So it's actually pretty insane. As of right now, that explosion does seem to be uncapped, which I'm sure, you know, when you start thinking about it, you can kind of see how this ability or how this passive talent, I guess, could get out of hand. We'll see in the future what can happen with it, but I think this is going to be pretty powerful. Just by looking at it right now, it's very reminiscent of Winds of Winter. If you guys don't remember, Winds of Winter was from the raid Sanctum of Domination. So it was the Frost Domination Shard set bonus, where, you know, you would have to stack up a lot of crit, and your crits would be stored as damage, and then you could direct where that damage would explode to. It was a single target, which is unlike this one, which is mass AoE, and it had a defensive thing to it. A lot of people loved playing with Winds of Winter. It's basically what made our class good during that tier. So it's super exciting to see this as a talent now. This one in particular, because the explosion is AoE, it makes it, you know, shine in AoE situations. Where it doesn't shine really is in single target. The only time that I could see it being really good in single target is if you're able to sort of build up the damage that's stored in Rage Fire in an AoE situation, and then maybe you move on to a different mob that you then want to funnel that explosion into. That is a possibility, but the fact that the final explosion is AoE and it's uncapped, it can kind of be inconvenient in terms of like trying to time when the explosion happens. I've been testing it in heroic dungeons on the alpha, and, you know, some really weird things happen where you'll pull a pack and you press Immolation Aura, you start, you know, banking damage, you have the buff, and then it doesn't quite explode until, unfortunately, after those mobs are dead, and it's completely wasted. But there is kind of a workaround for that. So what I've done is I've created basically a cancelaura macro. So you press the macro once to basically cast Immolation Aura if it's off cooldown, and then if you want to cancel your Immolation Aura buff, which would then, you know, proc the explosion of Rage Fire, you would press it again and it would remove the buff. So I'm going to show you that as an example right here. We'll go over here, and then I'm going to press Immolation Aura. You'll see my buffs are right here now. This is a new feature of the new UI. I've just put them here just, you know, for example's sake. So Immolation Aura is running. We have the Rage Fire buff here. It's accumulating damage. And then say I want to pop it right now, I would press it again. and it explodes. So that's one thing you can do to sort of bypass the weirdness of trying to time the explosion. Another thing that you could do, which doesn't quite work for me because of the keybind that I have Immolation Aura on, is you could do basically a modifier. So you could do like, Alt keybind to cancel your Immolation Aura, and then just your standard keybind is to cast it. So that's something you could set up. If you guys want these macros, I will be putting them in the description of this video. You can just scroll down and copy paste them from the description. One thing you do have to be careful of if you're using the first macro, the double tap to cancel it, you can sometimes accidentally press the macro or the button twice, which will just cancel it right away. Like I'll do it here just as an example, right? We cast it, press it again. It explodes right away. Immolation Aura goes off. Your Rage Fire didn't have any time to accumulate damage. It's a complete waste. So try to avoid doing that. Be very, very careful and be very deliberate in when you press that keybind. If you're afraid of doing that, use the modifier. I can't use the modifier because my default keybind for Immolation Aura is already Shift W. So this talent so far, with the initial trees that we've been given, right? This is the first week. A lot of this could change, but there are some other talents in this tree that that Ragefire interacts with. So the first one we'll point out is Growing Inferno, right? Immolation Aura's damage increases by 15% each time it deals damage. So that damage is ramping up on top of the potential for it to crit. All of that just feeds back into the amount of damage that Ragefire is accumulating over time. It's like pretty clear synergy, right? The other one is Fellfire Heart. Increases the duration of Immolation Aura by 2 seconds. So again, that's just giving you more opportunities for your Immolation Aura to crit, which means more damage funneled into Ragefire. The other one is Burning Wound. So this one isn't, it says it's not yet implemented. It seems to be working on the alpha, so I'm not sure what the plan is for it, but basically it increases damage taken from your Immolation Aura by 65%. So not only do you have the chance to crit, but you can also increase that crit damage by 65%. Again, just leading to more damage being funneled into your Ragefire. It's pretty crazy. And that's not it. That's not where it ends. There's also Aura of Pain, which is right here. Increases the critical strike chance of Immolation Aura by 5%. Can't go wrong with that, right? It just increases your chance to crit. Now, there's a couple other ones that we're not completely sure on if they're going to work, if these talents are staying, but I want to point them out to you just in case, right? This one here is called Initiative. Damaging an enemy before they damage you increases your critical strike chance by 15% for 5 seconds. So it's basically First Strike from Karain. But again, that's, an extra 15% chance to crit, which can be useful for your Immolation Aura. And the good thing about this is that using Vengeful Retreat refreshes the potential to trigger this effect on any enemy you're in combat with. So you can potentially keep this 15% increased crit chance going through the entire time. Unfortunately, when you press Vengeful Retreat, you're moving away from the mob, so your Immolation Aura is ticking, but it's not hitting anything. So it's kind of a trade-off, but just, yeah, there's clearly some synergy here. The other one is Know Your Enemy, which is this talent right here. Again, it's not yet implemented. It might not be staying, might be replaced with something else, might work differently, we don't know yet. But your attacks have increased critical strike damage bonus equal to your critical strike chance. So basically, my crit strike chance is 17%. So that's an extra 17% critical strike damage whenever I crit. So again, you can see how that extra damage just gets funneled into Ragefire. And then even with this talent, Know Your Enemy, that would affect the actual explosion of Ragefire as well. So the final explosion, which is probably going to be a large amount, also gets amplified by that increased crit damage. It's insane. Now, some other things to consider. It currently will also feed into Charred Warblades, right? Because it's fire damage. Your Immolation Aura is fire damage. The explosion of Ragefire is fire damage. This talent here, Charred Warblades, you heal for 5% of all damage you deal. So you're going to heal for 5% of whatever damage you do with Ragefire when it explodes. Pretty insane. One thing I would like to see is, I'll demonstrate this to you. Currently, there is no animation for Ragefire when it explodes. So you can see my Immolation Aura here, my Ragefire buff here. It's accumulating damage as Immolation Aura ticks and crits. And once this Immolation Aura buff falls off, this will explode. You can see there, it explodes, it does the damage. What I would like to see is some sort of animation to indicate that, you know, Ragefire is going off. Currently, the only way to track it is to just watch your Immolation Aura buff, which is kind of lackluster. It doesn't feel impactful. The only way to tell is to like see it on the meters whenever we have meters. We don't have meters on alpha yet, but you know what I mean? Like there's something missing there clearly. And I think that's probably something on the art department's sort of field that they'll take care of later down the line. But the core ability design is there. But I do think some type of animation would definitely help this feel a lot better to use. Yeah, so the performance right now is pretty weak. I've tested it in some dungeons, and it's weak right now because a couple of reasons. We don't have much crit, right? We have 17% crit. We're not able to get the excessive crit from initiative. There's a whole bunch of other factors. Mobs are dying way too quickly. We're doing heroic dungeons, so things are just absolutely melting. So it's, you know, it doesn't have time to really do anything. I think later down the line, when we have ample amounts of crit from our gear, which we will because we're going to be stacking crit due to other mechanics or other talents here. So we're going to be stacking crit. And one thing that I think is going to be pretty, you know, impactful to this playstyle here is getting this talent here. Any means necessary. So it changes your mastery. Mastery Demonic Presence now also causes your single school magic damage to be dealt as chaos instead. So what this means is any ability that does nature damage, any ability that does shadow damage, and any ability that does fire damage is converted into chaos damage. If all of that is converted into chaos damage, right, the ticks of Immolation Aura and the actual explosion of Ragefire, if that gets amplified by our mastery, even with the low amount of mastery that I have right now, that's going to increase the damage that does by an extra 21%. So you can see how that might get pretty out of hand here. Also, you might be thinking, oh, well, if it gets converted into chaos damage, we won't get the healing because it's not fire damage anymore, right? Charred Warblades isn't going to work. That's incorrect because we can test that right now, right? We have Charred Warblades selected. If we go and I-beam this target dummy, watch the healing right in the middle of the screen. It's there, and you can see in my combat log here, as I I-beam, Charred Warblades is proccing. So that's proof right there that shadow damage, that chaos damage does still get the healing from Charred Warblades. So yeah, I think right now, this skill or this talent is kind of underperforming, but in the future, once we get more crit, when mobs are lasting longer, when this talent actually works, we can transfer it into chaos damage, and then, you know, just a little bit of awareness from the player, maybe, you know, properly using the cancelaura macro, it can be pretty huge. So let me know what you guys think about this talent. If you're excited for it, any thoughts you might have, drop me a comment below. If you like this video, give it a like. Don't forget to sub to the channel. There's going to be a lot more Havoc Demon Hunter videos talking about all the new talents. There's going to be changes going forward, right? They're going to iterate on this tree, and I will be certain to update you guys on that whenever it happens. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.